Welcome back to the Dive Plan. I'm your guide, Jim. Here in the Puget Sound, we rely heavily on dry suits for our dives, especially those of us like me who dive year-round. You'd be hard-pressed to find any group or club in this region whose members aren't mostly, if not solely, comprised of dry suit divers. And though dry suits are fantastic, there are times that through heavy use or wear and tear, sometimes literally tear, like if you get caught by a blueberry bush, that we need to replace our wrist or neck seals. Because you don't want to be here when you find out you need to replace something on here. So today we'll go over how I replace the neck and wrist seals on mine and my friends' dry suits. I'll also add in some cool underwater critters to keep you from getting bored. Anyhow, that's the plan. Let's see if we can make that happen. We'll start with wrist seals. And of course, to replace them, you need these new wrist seals. You'll also need some repair adhesive. Aqua Seal is what I use most of the time. You'll also need masking tape, a roller, or some people call it a brayer, some fine sandpaper, like 300 grit or higher, some acetone, which helps remove detritus after you've taken the old seals off, a heat source to help activate the glue keeping the old seals on. I like to use this old hair dryer because heat guns are often too hot and could melt your actual dry suit. You'll need something about the width of your dry suit's wrists. I use an old conditioner bottle filled with sand to keep it from buckling. And optionally, you'll need a happy octopus to supervise. And speaking of octopus, here's an East Pacific red one. As mentioned earlier, this particular wrist seal got attacked by a blueberry bush, so we'll be replacing it. So what I'm doing here is heating up the wrist seal enough so that the glue underneath becomes hot enough and thus tacky enough to allow the wrist seal to be pulled up gently off of the dry suit wrist itself. And this can take a very long time, which is why it's important to be patient and why I've sped up the video ×4 so you don't have to sit through the entire grueling process. It's also important to remember to wear gloves, which I didn't do at this point, which is why, boom, I gave myself a wonderful blister. Also, don't do this. I was in a lot of pain from my blister and I just tore the remaining seal off. I don't normally do that, and I highly recommend you don't either. But hey, my pain is your gain. Learn from the mistakes of others so you don't repeat them. Luckily for me, it didn't cause any damage to the actual dry suit, and I was able to continue with the process of replacement. And for making it this far, your reward is a beautiful ratfish. So I filmed the next 3 steps and then found out that the video was corrupted. But they are important, so here they are. Step 1, put your wrist block through the arm of the dry suit. Step 2, sand away all excess glue. Step 3, wipe away any excess debris or chemicals with the acetone. This will ensure that your new seal seats properly and doesn't come unstuck. And it's not your fault that the videos of those 3 steps were messed up, so to say sorry, here's a beautiful female wolf eel eating an urchin. Now back to our repair. Once you square your block with the actual wrist of your dry suit, you'll put the new seal over the old glue spot. Then, once it's all evened out, you'll push your block up, right just like that, until the area where your wrist seal starts to tighten. Once you've got your seal exactly where you want it in place, you'll tape down the upper portion of the seal with masking tape. This would be the part above the actual dry suit wrist. You can see the bump in the video where the dry suit wrist ends and it's just seal. You can also see a mermaid princess in the background secretly stealing my octopus supervisor. And you can see he's back now after I begged her to return him. Then our next step is to tape just below the bottom edge of the wrist seal. And there goes my octopus again. This will help keep the glue from going onto the rest of your dry suit and it'll keep the glue exactly where you want it when you roll the wrist seal back over it, as I'll show you in a second here. The next step is to roll the wrist seal onto the upper band of masking tape. And my octopus supervisor has returned again. Then I'll do one final sanding, followed by one final acetone wipe down to make sure that there's nothing that'll keep my new wrist seal from bonding perfectly. And because you've been so good thus far, here's a sea lion. The next step is to apply the adhesive. I do this in 2 stages. I apply the first layer, which you see here, and then after about 20 minutes, when the first layer is tacky, I apply the second layer, which helps to give it a firm bond when I roll the wrist seal back down onto the adhesive itself. Next, I roll the wrist seal down onto the adhesive. I make sure it's even all the way around and as flat as I can possibly make it. Then I take my roller and smooth it out completely, making sure there are no bumps, bubbles, or bulges. Finally, I hang my Drysuit up and put some baby powder on the inside and outside of the seal to suck up any excess moisture or oils I might have accidentally put on it while I was repairing it, and then I let it hang for 2 to 4 days. As far as neck seals, they're just an oversized version of wrist seals. This is actually a buddy's Drysuit who had his neck seal replaced and promptly ripped his new seal, so I'm replacing it for him. Again, please try to remember to wear gloves during this, or else, boom. Though I have the gloves sitting on this same table I'm working on. Once you get the old seal off, you need a block to put the neck around. I use this bucket that I've purposed for this specifically. I pull the neck seal down over the bucket so it's just slightly stretched. I use this type of paintbrush to apply the adhesive to both wrist and neck seals. Importantly though, I cut the first half of the bristles off, which keeps me from getting bristles in the adhesive, which could cause a problem later. Once I've followed all the same steps I have for the wrist seals, I'll hang the Drysuit up and see if, as you can see here, there are any areas where the adhesive isn't clinging. I'll then lay the Drysuit back down, use masking tape to get those areas flat, and use lead shot weights to keep those areas secure until the glue sets. And since that can happen at a snail's pace, here's a Lewis's moon snail to keep you occupied. So, how did our wrist seal repair work?
Dive's done. Wrist is completely dry. And at the end of the dive, how'd the neck seal work out?
Right.
Sweet.
So there you have it, replacing your wrist and neck seals. All you need is patience, positivity, and the passion to follow the steps and do it right. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned something. And until next time, fins up, dive safe.